For 60 days, one specific theory dominated how the public viewed this mystery. Security footage captured a figure approaching the home's main entrance. Everyone assumed a front door breach, ignoring the backyard until things shifted this week. An FBI specialist informed News Nation that the front-facing lens missed the suspect's arrival. It actually filmed his exit, proving the rear door served as his entrance. This implies the intruder slipped in through the back of Nancy Guthrie's lot, emerging from those unmonitored shadows where no surveillance cameras could see him. No video caught his approach, and his method of entry remains unrecorded. Before fleeing, police say he used the victim's own planters to prop gates open. These were her belongings, not items brought by the killer from outside. No specialized tools were used. He simply grabbed objects already on the lawn. This newly reported detail creates puzzles that 60 days of searching haven't solved. Some parts of this narrative still feel completely off. Once you accept the rear entry theory, several other facts become much harder to explain. 3 specific elements: the residence itself, the planters, and the backwoods terrain. Examining these 3 points causes the entire investigation to branch into conflicting theories. The original video gave the public a very specific, perhaps entirely incorrect story. This fresh interpretation paints a drastically different picture of what happened. If that clip captured a departure instead of an arrival, then the killer's most critical movements were never caught on tape. No lens watched him creep in from the darkness behind the residence. We have no idea how long he spent lurking on the property. It is unknown if he rushed the door or waited for the right moment. This is not a minor detail, it redefines the entire scope of the search. Now the mystery centers on how anyone accessed the rear lot so cleanly. How did he enter there while leaving such a minimal footprint? We are monitoring every major break in this investigation as it happens. Follow us so the algorithm delivers the next update when things change. The whole situation could shift again at any moment. Let's look at the first big question. What happened inside? Recently, an investigative insider told News Nation the interior showed no signs of violence. That source specifically used the word pristine to describe the home. That is a very unexpected way to describe a potential crime scene, especially since on February 4th, shortly after Nancy's disappearance, Sheriff Chris Nanos claimed there were clear markers of a physical fight. That initial report colored how everyone interpreted the victim's final moments. It was widely cited and became a foundational fact of the case. Now we are stuck with 2 conflicting versions of the exact same scene. One official claims a struggle. Another source insists the house was perfect. These 2 accounts simply cannot both be true simultaneously. Perhaps the first look was wrong, or only focused on one area. Maybe the forensic view has shifted significantly since those first few days. To the public, however, this represents a massive, unexplained discrepancy. These clashes matter because they dictate our theories about what happened inside. Physical evidence of a fight would suggest a chaotic, loud encounter. A spotless interior implies a far more orderly event, suggestively calmer and less chaotic than initial public assumptions. This doesn't pinpoint the exact occurrence, but it challenges the most common narrative surrounding the incident. The core conflict is this: why did the sheriff cite a struggle if the home was actually found in perfect order? Which account mirrors the actual reality? This isn't just trivia, it's the bedrock of the investigation. Second, consider the planters. This detail is potentially vital, yet remains largely ignored. Recent reports indicate that the killer utilized the victim's own planters to keep various doors and gates propped open. Realize the weight of that. These weren't external tools brought to the scene. They were existing fixtures on the property itself. We can interpret this 2 ways. Perhaps it was quick thinking as the intruder scouted the yard at night. He reached the back, spotted the pots, and decided they were the perfect improvised tools for his entry. That's a valid theory, as criminals often adapt on the fly. Adrenaline frequently drives rapid tactical choices. Alternatively, the killer might have already known those pots were there. He'd seen them before and knew they were perfectly placed for his needs. In this scenario, they were a pre-planned part of his operation. This gains traction because the FBI is reportedly questioning neighbors about local contractors, gardeners, and repairmen working there before February 1st. These are specific inquiries, not smoking guns, but specific inquiries. They suggest police are eyeing someone who had legitimate daytime access and used that time to map the layout for a nighttime strike. To be clear, this doesn't provide a final answer. It just narrows the scope. Was it a lucky find by a stranger? Or did the killer utilize objects he was already intimately familiar with? That's our second hurdle. The third involves the land behind the residence. Brian Anton went back to Arizona to walk the actual perimeter of the site. Seeing it in person reveals a much different story than a map does. The terrain is jagged, and the desert night is suffocatingly dark. You're facing rocks and thick brush, with almost no landmarks after the sun sets. There's no street lighting out there, and no paved walkways, making it nearly impossible to sneak around at 2 a.m. Yet, the killer seemingly used that path, leaving us with two main theories. Either it was deep preparation, where a stranger spent weeks learning every rock and bush, allowing them to move through the pitch black without a second thought. That's one path. The other is pure familiarity. Someone who had been there many times before for a legitimate reason. They didn't need to feel their way around because they already knew the ground. The property's layout wasn't a mystery. They had already memorized it in the daylight. It's a choice between intense scouting or pre-existing knowledge. From where we sit, we can't be sure which profile fits the crime better. But one fact is undeniable. Taking that specific path implies something far more intentional than just wandering around in the dark. This leaves us staring at three major holes in the current investigation. We have got wildly different accounts regarding the state of that residence. Those planters hint at either a panicked move or inside info, plus that harsh desert landscape, which demands a serious level of prep or local expertise to navigate. 3 facts, 3 lingering mysteries. Which of these feels the most suspicious to you? Drop a comment below, since every one of these leads down a totally different rabbit hole. One critical new update is coming to light, and it shifts the entire focus ahead. A specialist informed News Nation that police need to hunt for a possible secondary site, a spot where Nancy could have been held after she was moved from her home. Whether it is a car, a hidden room, or land, why is this so vital? Simple. If the first crime scene was already messed up, or picked over, the most damning physical proof probably isn't inside that house anyway. The real answers likely sit in a more secluded, untouched environment. Should another site actually exist and the cops manage to track it down, it changes the game, because forensic science isn't fueled by media hype, it just keeps grinding away. Parabon Nanolab's own CC Moore is confident that they will eventually unmask the perpetrator. It is a bold claim, but it is backed by solid scientific breakthroughs. Modern DNA tracking does not require the suspect to already be in the system. All they need is a cousin or a far-off relative to start mapping the family tree. Once that ball starts rolling, time ceases to be the shield these criminals count on. This is precisely why that secondary crime scene theory is so massive. Not as a final answer, but as the best chance to find pristine, untouched evidence. Plus, keep an eye on this week. Savannah Guthrie is back on the Today Show this April 6th. That initial sit-down already shook things up by dragging fresh info into the spotlight, which means her next segment carries a lot of weight for this case. Whatever she reveals might not close the book, but it will definitely change the narrative. We will be right here to break it all down as soon as it drops. Make sure to hit subscribe so you are the first to know when the news breaks. If you have any leads at all regarding what happened to Nancy Guthrie, contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. The reward is $1.2 to $2 million. You can stay totally anonymous and private. We have reached day 60, 2 months since her abduction on the morning of February 1st. A rear door now looks like the culprit's path. The sheriff tells one story about the home, while other sources claim something different. Planters snatched right from the yard, and a pitch-black desert trek made completely in the shadows. Nancy is currently 84 years old. She requires daily meds to survive, and her loved ones are desperate for any news. 60 days later, the biggest puzzles in this mystery are still missing their pieces. 2 months in, and the whole thing still feels completely wrong.